could jump on this mic. But for now, I'm just going to try to project. So my name is Dan Kennedy. I welcome you all to the public hearing on the strategic plan, by statute known as the State Development and Redevelopment Plan. I spent a good amount of my first phase of my professional career here in Burlington County, running the farmland preservation program here. I'm a resident of Burlington County, so for any of my fellow Burlington County residents, I say thanks for coming out and engaging in this process. Counties like Burlington are known, and many other counties in the state are known to be very involved in the development and reconsideration of the state plan periodically. By statute, the State Planning Act, which was adopted during the Kane administration back 25 years ago or so, requires that every 3 years the cross-acceptance process is to begin, and that process is intended to revise and readopt the state plan. As you can maybe do some math here, 2004 the plan cross-acceptance started, and last time I checked we're in 2012, so you can ask yourself what happened in the middle. Well, there's a lot of policy back and forth which resulted in a lag of over 7 years, where that cross-acceptance process had ebbs and flows, starts and stops. Local government spent a lot of time and energy on that process, also spent a lot of money on that process. State agencies cooperated at times and at times did not cooperate, and a lot of new information was dumped onto the table during that process, which resulted in, when this administration came in, the end of 2010, there was a plan that as a result did not have a lot of agreement, which was the goal of the process. As such, we extended cross-acceptance by doing a very swift stakeholder process and revisioning of what the state plan should be or could be under the context of the State Planning Act. And as a result, the governor, working with the staff of the State Planning Commission, which is Jerry and I and a couple other folks here in the crowd and out in the hall, worked with stakeholders ranging in interests, including local government stakeholders, county reps and local mayors and such, to develop this draft, which was proposed to the State Planning Commission in the fall. The State Planning Commission adopted it as their final draft, and then that led us to embark on the process to get the final draft, which is just a draft tonight. So we're here listening out, hearing comments and constructive and otherwise about ways we can improve the final draft to make it a better document when it is potentially adopted by the State Planning Commission in the next couple months. And as Jerry mentioned, we are taking comments. If you don't feel comfortable making comments tonight, if you're not a great public speaker, if you don't want to speak tonight, you could also submit comments. And we ask those comments to be as constructive as possible, to be as kind of detailed as possible, so we can take them and really use them in deliberations to get this plan finalized. Let's tell a little story here about planning and zoning, a real hot, sexy topic, right? Every municipality in the state has a master plan. Their police powers under the municipal land use law allow them to regulate the use and intensity of land within their municipalities, as long as it's allowed under the ordinance and the ordinance is consistent with the master plan. Every county has some level of planning that goes on. Counties have responsibilities to deal with roads and drainage primarily, and most of them have some sort of comprehensive development plan. They also are very involved with sewers in this state. They're very involved with open space and farmland preservation and things of that nature. So there's a scale there at that level of government that also does planning. We also have regional entities in the state, like the Pinelands, the Highlands, the Meadowlands, that are kind of in between county but underneath the state, that are authorized by state law to do some of the functions that county and local governments do in terms of regulating land in the context of either the state or authorizing legislation or under the auspices of the municipal land use law. So where does the state come into play here? Well, the state has granted land use authority under the municipal land use law to the municipalities. So what business does the state have having a state plan? Well, utility is a state plan. Well, the state has a lot of responsibility in this thing too. The state has responsibilities through federal authority oftentimes to regulate features of this state that are important to many of us that can't be managed at the local level effectively. Water, air, things like that, transportation, energy, things that are really not appropriate to be regulated at the local municipal scale. Irregardless, we have silos in state government that are responsible for these different kinds of regulations. We've got DEP primarily in charge of environmental regulations, DOT in charge of transportation, Department of Agriculture, which is charged with advocacy for retention and development of our agricultural industry. DCA has a heavy role in affordable housing. And if you're from a state agency that I call out, I'm sorry, but I just can't think of you all. All those agencies also have responsibilities for investments in the state, whether it's a investment through federal government, like a lot of our transportation money in the state comes from the federal government, especially our big investments in transit infrastructure, all funneled down through the federal government and through our metropolitan planning organizations, which are also a kind of a quasi-planning organization that have some level of authority on an investment in the state. So we think that we need to be really careful about how involved the state of New Jersey is from a planning context to not overstep the authority of the municipal land use law, but be involved enough where we can manage our responsibilities effectively within the different departments and also effectively make investment decisions so that we can support the desires of the local governments in ways that don't detract from the important resources we have to steward in the state. The state also makes big investments in land preservation. Almost any deal that happens in this state, land preservation-wise, most deals happen in the state with a percentage of that deal happening from state resources. So we are the stewards of a big pot of money at the state of New Jersey that gets distributed statewide through our counties, municipalities, and nonprofits. So we've got all these partnerships that effectively drive the results of land preservation, which I think statewide is something that we all should be pretty proud of. It's something that we're known for and really is one of the big drivers in our quality of life. So the state plan, as we envision it moving forward, we have a state plan today. It was last adopted in 2001. This is not a new plan. This is not a new obligation. This obligation has been on state government through the State Planning Commission since 1986. This would be the third version of the plan adopted. And the focus of this plan is primarily trying to organize the state agencies in their capacity to regulate and in their capacity to make investments, and leave as much as we can up to county and local government and the regional entities that are responsible through law to play a heavier role in the state. The reality is over half the state is regulated outside the context of the State Planning Act. In the Highlands and the Pinelands and the Meadowlands, the State Planning Act has very limited authority. But we do have an ability to help the growth areas of those places have a better partner with local government, a better partner at state government to actually offer some flexibility in places that we had decided collectively through the democracy in those regions of good places to grow. That could be a role for us to really help out. We could also help out in making smart investments in the place they want to see grow and preserve. So those are roles that we can also play through the State Planning Act in those areas where we don't have authority. It's not always about authority. Counties don't have a lot of authority, but many counties in the state are very effective at bringing municipalities together for good quality conversations about what's best for the region from a corridor perspective or from a watershed perspective, and trying to get everyone to understand what the common goals are, what the common issues are, what's commonly at stake, and try to get some leverage with a higher level of government to get the investments that they need to get what they want locally. So this collectivism at the county level isn't driven by statutory authority per se. It's driven mostly by a spirit of having something in common and knowing that working together they may be able to get more of what they want. How many people in the room have been involved in the state planning process, like cross-acceptance, plan endorsement in the past? All right. So we all know that we've kind of had some of these conversations before. This is not a new one. So we have many people that have been involved in the development of potentially the previous state plans, The state plan policy map was one that was always kind of got some pitchforks out through the state and got everyone, the local government, a tizzy in relation to the state plan. What this plan calls for is a phase out of the state plan policy map and meeting the obligations of the State Planning Act to identify areas in the place best suitable for growth, limited growth and preservation through a criteria-based system. We also are arguing that we should phase out the system known as plan endorsement. The goals of plan endorsement, I personally think were pretty good. Try your best to get harmony between local regulation, local zoning, planning, and state regulations, and try to harmonize that so we're all on the same page. Well, what actually happened is that as a result of the state in past administrations putting a lot of obligations on that process, we've only had 17 municipalities of the 565 now, that Princeton has merged, actually go through that process. So we don't think that that program, regardless of what the intent was up front, ever got to the appropriate scale where it actually drove the results expected under the State Planning Act for coordination. We don't think that also dealing with that kind of coordination town by town is probably is really an effective strategy to really get to the scale of driving the big regional impacts that we think that the State Planning Act can have. So this plan argues that we're going to phase out the plan endorsement process. Plan endorsement process is not required by the State Planning Act, and we think we can get coordination with local governments in many ways outside the scope of a heavy-handed plan endorsement system. The high level of disagreement is reported on our website at the State Planning Commission. Those reports are known as the Statements of Agreements and Disagreements and the Statewide Issues Report. That report was done in the past administration and documented the high level of disagreement between local government, county government, and state government, where they identified roughly 1,000 mapping issues and over 500 policy issues, where we inherited this high level of disagreement. Some of that disagreement was kind of not relevant anymore. Some of that disagreement was resolved through the redraft of the plan that we've done at the end stages of cross acceptance. But we do know that there's a high level of disagreement that still remains between local government, county government, and state government. And we have a plan, we think, that has a framework to start really drilling down and solving that friction as best we can. Knowing that we're all adults, so we know that there's always going to be friction between different levels of government. You know, this is the nature of the beast. We're never going to all be skipping down in the fields and be happy. There's always some sort of, local government has friction with state government has friction with local government. That's never going to be resolved to a 0 point. But we can make our situation much better here so we can fight the real fight, and that's trying to deliver a high quality of life for our residents in this state and not fighting each other over ratables or fighting each other over regulations. The State Planning Commission was reorganized under the Department of State and removed from underneath the Department of Community Affairs, where we were tied naturally through the budget and through just the goals of the Department of Community Affairs at the time, with a pretty heavy-handed agenda for affordable housing. And no one's arguing this plan does actually have a value in it related to housing in the state. So no one's arguing that housing is an important part of the conversation for planning statewide. We were kind of tied into the kind of a heavy conversation, the detail there, which didn't really lead to productive results between negotiations between, say, Department of Community Affairs and DEP. We were kind of stuck in the middle, and no administration really resolved the issue for us, which led to probably part of the story of why we were in purgatory for seven years through cross acceptance. We may not all agree with each other in the room tonight. We're probably going to hear a lot of disagreement when we open things up at 7 o'clock. That's natural, that's healthy. But maybe we can all agree that the state of New Jersey is really a complex organization that needs a high-level strategy to be successful. So when parts of a complex organization are working together, the opportunity for success of any organization, whether private or public, is minimized. So with the resource constraints that we face in the state, whether they're environmental constraints or fiscal constraints, we think that this complex organization known as the state of New Jersey would benefit greatly from a rethink of our organizational strategy that could be contained in the state plan. We at staff and many people that we answer to believe that the State Planning Act could be interpreted to direct most of our attention to the state agencies that operate under the authority of the governor. We think that by working with partners to encourage job growth and economic investment by capitalizing on our strengths and assets, we are going to be dealing with the issues that some of the most important issues we face today, without forgetting about that some of these industries are here and will stay here because of the high quality of life that the environmental resources that we have and want to keep in this state are in place. So it's really about a balance between growth and preservation. And planning can help. It won't fix the disagreement we have, but planning can help drive results to help us capitalize on our existing talented, well-educated workforce, our extensive physical infrastructure, which other states would love to have. We know we've got to spend billions over time to upgrade and reinforce that investment that's been made by the previous generations. But we know that our physical infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our tunnels, our sewer infrastructure, our water infrastructure is very important to our growth potential in the future, to our viability moving forward. And we need to be really smart about how we make those investments to make sure that we have high return on investment that drives the kind of growth that we're looking for. We have a geography that's unlike no other. I'm a fourth generation state resident. I'm raising the fifth generation state residents in my household right now. I stay here. I know many of you may stay here too because we've got some of the most diverse assets in terms of our coasts, our highlands, our pinelands, our farms, our parks, our urban assets like museums and our ballparks and things like that. So we've got these amazing set of diverse assets amongst our landscape that most of us care about and want to see protected. We also have prosperous industry clusters that we think that if we pay a little bit more attention to their needs and wants, we can have organic growth of those existing clusters that will spur innovation in other sectors and growth of job production in the state throughout our regions. We also know that without strong leadership, none of this is really possible. We've proven that through the past renditions of the State Planning Act, the state plan. And you may or may not like Governor Christie or Lieutenant Governor. That's not the point. The point is that these folks get the fact that a level of statewide planning is required to organize state government to be a better partner with local government. So their strong leadership focused this way, we think can be a real strength in the opportunity for us to get this right when other plans haven't quite got it right. The plan starts really with a high-level vision and mission. It's not supposed to get into your backyard or talk about what should happen on your particular parcel. Our vision is based on being the national leader in private and public investment. So we're not just talking about spending tax dollars, we're talking about private and public investment, which supports sustainable communities that attract and provide strong economic opportunities. So the state of New Jersey, in the context of the state plan, takes more of a support role with our local communities, because we want to help attract and provide strong economic opportunities, preserve our state's natural resources, and create healthier communities to work, reside, and recreate. So our mission to get to that vision is to focus our policies and investments. So our focus under this plan is to focus the state of New Jersey's policies and investments on vibrant regions by fostering targeted job growth, supporting effective regional planning, and preserving our resources. We heard through the last year about a lot, not about what the plan should be, but a lot about what the plan shouldn't be. We are leaving the days of having a very detailed, some would argue heavy-handed state plan with a lot of detail about what should happen in people's backyards. So we think the plan shouldn't be. We don't think is a top-down approach to force compliance with the statewide land use plan. Those planners in the room understand that this is not a land use plan, as it has been in the past. We don't think the State Planning Act requires to produce such a plan. It shouldn't be an additional layer of bureaucracy. We're looking to strip down some of the layers of bureaucracy through the state plan map process and the plan endorsement process to get really to our mission. It's certainly never has been in the past 25, 30 years, a substitute for sound local and regional comprehensive plans, nor will it take away local and planning and zoning authority. It's not a silver bullet here. There's issues that the state faces that go far beyond the context of the State Planning Act and the state plan. So although it's recognized some of our weaknesses in the state related to our property tax burden, our corporate tax burden, and things like that, the authority of the state and education and public safety, it's referenced in here in this plan. And although the governor is tackling most of those issues head on, it doesn't get addressed as action items within this plan because it's either not the right plan to do that or being addressed in different ways. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. The one challenge we face in New Jersey is that every region is very different. So we have real challenges here trying to write a state plan to make sense for, we were down in Clayton and then we were up in Newark throughout this public hearing process. So it's really hard to get a mission and vision that makes sense for our unique regions of New Jersey. So we can't approach this as a one-size-fits-all solution because of the diversity we have in this state, which results in a lot of cultural, environmental, political diversity that makes it really challenging to have a state plan that can really be effective and drive results throughout the state. The plan sets principles for state decision-making that are, you could probably glean some of these principles from the red tape report. It talks more about how state of New Jersey should operate on a day-to-day basis, gets into some of the culture changes of our state employees and our state programs, predictability, spatial efficiency, leveraging assets, sustainability, and institutionalizing change. The plan talks about what we mean about that. I want to touch on what we mean by sustainability head on. The plan says that the sustainability principle means that the state of New Jersey will plan for and respond to current and future challenges and opportunities through adaptive decision-making that takes into account the social, economic, and environmental protection and enhancement needs of the state. So when we make decisions, we have to think short and long term, and that we just can't think about the environment or the economy when we're making decisions. We have to think about through various lenses, which include a social lens, to make the best decisions. So we feel like when we're making decisions, we need to think long-term and short-term, and make decisions that are through lenses that include environmental, economic, and social ones to get to the best decisions on that niche issue in question. The first goal of this plan is targeted economic growth. The smart growth goals of the past and the state plan have been replaced by 4, I think, pretty clear tactical goals. The smart growth goals show up as a set of values under the second goals that are specifically statewide scope, are not going to be met in every single town, and are supposed to be interpreted by the towns, counties, and regional entities in ways that if we think that they scope it right, we can meet